Sure, let's start by introducing ourselves. So, who are you, Sanita?
Hello, Yao. Yeah, I'm Sunita, and maybe some of you already know me because I popped in to one of their sessions on I think it was teaching methods. And so my name is Sunita. I come from Cameroon, and yeah, I've been a permaculture educator for some time now and deeply connected to movements of sustainable communities, and I currently do or work with an organization on collective healing and trauma. And yeah, and I have a deep, deep, deep love for nature. Do you want to say a few words about yourself? Yeah.
Sure. So, I'm Yao. I come from Hong Kong. Um, I came to Europe in 2000 for, no, 2006. And since I've been living in Belgium, Brussels, since 10 years, and I'm working closely in permaculture um, and also with refugees. And now I am working in an association here in Brussels, Anderlecht, and it's an organization that is working on environmental issues and the protection of the area that is around this association. Thank you.
Yeah, and so today we want to, yeah, we're doing a quick recording of a session around decolonizing permaculture. We would love you, or at least we know that you have already watched the short video from Lila June. And Yao and I would just share a few words about this video and invite you to to think even deeper. Would you like to say a few words, Yao? What is your take on it?
Um, I really liked the way she presented the topic. Actually the topic was not on decolonization. It was, can you remind me what was the topic of this video?
I think it's about healing in gender and feminism.
Right, that's it. So I really liked how she presented or planned, I guess, her conference, her talk, um, with different methods, I would say. So she started by rapping and then gave a small talk, and then some of her friends went on stage and they also gave some short speech. Um, do you have anything to add to that, Sunita?
Hmm. I think an invitation that I might have to the video is that it allows me to at least think deeper into masculinity and feminine energy and what it means to marry both or at least embody both. And maybe this is an opportunity for all of us to think a little deeper into that. Um, but also, one thing that stood out that is also an invitation for reflection is um, how to arrive at the land, arriving in a new place, and sensing into the ancestry of that space. Um, and before we have the authority to speak, to allow the people of the land to guide us, and so maybe a bigger invitation there to think, how do I arrive a place What are the things that intrigue me about arriving in a new space? And are there, people of indigenous heritage living there? And then something about land that stood out as well in the video. Which spoke about land and access to land and asking ourselves, um, who are the people whose lands I'm living on?
Right, exactly. I mean, we can also relate that to um, like working on a field or working on a lands and an environment. So yeah, okay, ask who was there before as humans, but also as other species than humans who are here. Who is here before you weed, you take out the plants, undesirable plants. Which animals was here before you turn your soil, etc., etc. How much respect do you have to what is here before?
Yeah, and that was a quick reflection, except you would like to say a few more words. And maybe this is also an invitation for you if there is a community platform, or you are already connected to one of the students or the participants of the course, then you could have a quick reflection with them to just speak about this video or the topics that show up in this video with them.
Maybe we can just have a few words on feminism.
On feminism. There you go. What would you like to share?
Because we were discussing last night, like feminism, or maybe more precisely, ecofeminism, has a very close ties with decolonialization. Would you like to have a few words about that?
Yeah. So I find ecofeminism a very interesting movement and also very valuable movement for this time. And if some of us, because this session is not actually about ecofeminism, but again, another invitation for you to look it up in the case where you are not so informed about it. But there are also people like Vandana Shiva who are very active in such movements and speak about ecofeminism. But it's about, embracing femininity and at the same time embracing nature. Um, yeah, I'm not, of course, not an expert in ecofeminism, but I find it a very interesting perspective, looking at our society, looking at life. And when you double that on permaculture, um, you gain new, renewed eyes. So if I would think about observation, the aspect of observation in permaculture, that it gives us new perspective, um, both for women, but also for men, because there are parts of men that are also feminine. Would you want to say more?
Yeah, I want to say, even though I'm not a woman, I can also have femininity in me. That I feel from what I understand of ecofeminism is that it started from the movements that were started by women for the rights of women and also other people who are victim of masculinity, um, while decolonialization has a strong thing in common with feminism as a sense of where this where we acknowledge that this society, this present society, is based on the domination of one on another population. And this exists between man and woman in Western society, but it also exists from the Western society to the other parts of the world, which is why these two topics have a strong tie together and could actually be related sometimes as the same thing.
Mm. And it also brings, this interesting insight of, when you know about the gender norms and the kinds of hierarchies that exist in our society around gender, and to be able to analyze the relationships, our relationships between human and the natural world, either our connectedness or our disconnectedness to the natural world, is likened to the way gender roles in society are currently played, um, where there is a lot of dominance from certain genders over others, and this usually is suffered by most feminine, um, or at least the feminine perspective, suffers a lot from that disconnect or rippled relationship. And that kind of rippled relationship also reflects how we connect with each other, but also how we connect to nature. Yeah. And now maybe this is kind of inviting us, Yao, to go maybe even deeper into decolonizing permaculture and what even is that. Would you want to say a word on that?
Sure. Um, well, first I want to actually acknowledge the knowledge of permaculture. Where does it come from? The history of it. So, from my understanding, Bill Mollison, which was an Australian uh, permaculturist, learned from Fukuoka, who was a Japanese um, farmer, after being influenced by his teacher, went all over the world, or maybe it was before that teacher. I don't exactly know or remember, but I think so. Basically, the knowledge from the designer's manual, which all permaculturist, permaculture teacher use as a baseline. Um, the knowledge inside this book is mainly indigenous and native people's knowledge that isn't there. So I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that, and especially when we work with people who are actually indigenous people. What are we gonna bring to them, or is it them, or is it our participants who are actually gonna contribute to our course? That's a question that we have to ask ourselves before we actually do the facilitation and think we have anything to transmit, because actually that knowledge comes already from more ancient, more ancestrous soul spirit.
Mm. Yeah, and the Molysino does mention that he has also this is a collection of knowledge from different places. And thank you so much for really highlighting that, because I think that makes a difference, because maybe even just the word permaculture in going maybe to Africa or somewhere in Africa. I mean, Africa is not a country, so going for example to Ghana, um, and arriving in Ghana, and you invited for a permaculture course, and then we start by, of course, as you have already said, using the word permaculture. Um, But of course, there are a lot of people already practicing many bits and pieces of permaculture. They just don't call it permaculture. So how do we arrive there? Again, how do we arrive the land? How do we know that the people already have alternative ways of doing things, and how do we integrate that so that we don't create tension between permaculture and the people that we want to bring the knowledge to, or at least we also want to learn from because they have also something to give.
Right.
Yeah.
Agree.
So we had actually thought about this a bit deeper. Would you want to share what our idea is for this session, or what things we wanted to explore, Yao?
Um, are you talking about our planning for this? Yeah, sure. Um, so we were thinking to talk about maybe a bit more how decolonization and how the teacher training and how we would organize a course having this mindset as we organize, take care of people, take care of the content, and take care of the earth.
Hmm. And probably this is just one way of looking at it. And maybe you have done this in other contexts, and you could approach it from many different angles. Colonialism in itself is very big, and when you want to decolonize, then there are lots of layers to it. But to make it easier, we've just chosen this area that Yao has beautifully described for us.
Good. Do you want to start with the preparation of the course?
Yes. So on the preparation phase, we normally let's take it that we're going and we're going to organize a permaculture teachers training, or we're going to organize a PDC. We are all teachers. That's now what we have become. And the question is to have a few questions at the back of our minds, who is the course for? And in preparation for the course, to think, what is the title of the course? Who will I want to participate in this course? So which voices will I want to be represented in this course? Usually these are things that we anyways think about when we're planning a course. Where is the difference? The only difference I see, but you could see lots of others, is the fact that we usually center whiteness. And let me put it just straight, even though it's a difficult concept, whiteness. We could speak for 10 hours around whiteness or blackness. But this, the way our world is shaped has been in a way that people who are in context with more privileges, or at least situations or circumstances around the global north, usually take precedence. And this just happens, it just occurs to us. It's not like we have so much we intentionally, so in that regard, judging things from the perspective, or at least saying or maybe unconsciously judging things from the perspective from a standard, and the standard is the standard of the north, and the standard is usually whiteness. Why do I say this? So I can give an example to make it more concrete. So usually unintentionally things happen, And when they say we want to categorize people, they always say, okay, they don't usually say, now these are people who are white from Europe, or these are people. Usually they say, okay, one part of the world is the developed world. And so the rest is undeveloped, underdeveloped. Um, another way to look at it is to say that we can create several groups within a course, and that group that we are going to create would be Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And Black, Indigenous, and people of color, the only group that is not in this category of Black, Indigenous, and people of color is whiteness. And so therefore, Black, Indigenous, and people of color has been created from an existing standard, knowing that whiteness is there, but everything else is in one other group. And you can actually start to see that actually Indigenous people are one group, people of color are one group, and Indigenous people can be from Asia, can be from Africa, can be from Europe. You can actually have Indigenous people who are also white. But when we are conditioned, to think that whiteness is one and everything else is the other, then this could potentially allow us to create courses that attract people who are naturally in this group of whiteness. Why? Because it's not conscious. The words that we put out, the communique that we write about the course also determines who is invited. And I was sharing this with Yao that, for example, if I, and this was in one of our courses, Yao, so this was their permaculture teachers training for refugees and migrants. And this was a course that's beautifully designed by Alfred. And together with Alfred, we were running two already in Vidalia, in a community where in Spain, Catalonia, where Alfred was living. And when I thought that when I already see a course like this, permaculture teachers training for refugees and migrants, I know that I can be part of this course because the communication that comes about the course is very clear who it wants to include. It's intentional at saying, I want you to participate. You are invited to be in this course. This is very different from saying, I'm going to do a permaculture teachers training in Spain. It's very likely that if 10 people were people of color, so who have the color I have or who look like Yao, are not so advanced or interested, connected to Alfred and want to participate in this course, will almost not apply. And what happens then is the participants you have would be participants for the target that naturally feel the communication that went out. That's what we mean by centering, whiteness. And maybe we can now explore, Yao, over to you.
Yeah, so we can speak a bit about the facilitating team. How do we choose our facilitators to make it more diverse, more inviting for other communities, other ethnicities to join the class? Which facilitators will make it more suitable for other participants to join, or participants that normally wouldn't join, but because you have chosen these criteria for which facilitator, it makes it much easier for the participants to join. How about language, Sonita? Should we talk a little bit about language?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So English is the standard also today. Um, but it really, for me, it really doesn't need to be the standard. And and I think with Rosemary's teacher training, we're trying, at least I am trying to reduce and reduce and reduce words inside courses. So to make it more accessible to everyone. And also, as you learned in the course, language is only 10% or 15% or maximum 20% of the whole message that you want to transmit. The rest is in other things. So to state the importance that also you can use language, use translators, so that the course will be accessible to different people who speak different languages. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. So.
No, I would just, give a thumbs up to it because I think it's a very, very interesting. The language makes the course.
Yeah. So like often we think like language is a barrier. Well, wow, there's 5 different cultures that all speak different languages, and that's what I thought as well. It's impossible to have 5 languages and to make the course go smoothly. But yeah, if you have 5 languages and if you have 5 translators, you are working well together, it can function. It can really function. It needs experience. You need some time to fix that out, how to get along. But as, as soon as you fix that out, after a few days, it can flow just as much as if it's one language or 2 language. There could be more. That's what I want to say. Like we need to try out more things to make the society more inclusive for everybody. Should I carry on with the participants, or do you want to?
Yes,
Yep.
please.
Okay. And we should also question about our participants, like Sonita was already talked a lot about it. How do we make it more inclusive? How to invite different people from different communities in your local area or internationally to join the course. The topic, the focus topic makes a lot of difference. We organized the course here on decolonization, and yeah, we see the difference in the audience. There's no doubt about it. People who are subject to this topic often are people who are being racialized or discriminated, etc., etc. And I wanted to also raise the awareness about now more and more, we see more and more closed groups happening. By closed groups, I mean, so only a certain type or certain people are invited, which means that some people are unfortunately excluded. At first, I was finding that extremely weird and not understanding why is this exclusion of other people, which I could sometimes be also excluded. But I understood afterwards, after talking to the group, to the people, that the reason why this exclusion exists is because if they don't do it, it will actually exclude those people who are creating this small group, which means that this group would not even happen if there were not this exclusion. In permaculture, we say integrate rather than segregate, but the strategy sometimes is to segregate or to exclude to be able to integrate. Unfortunately, it's like that. At the moment, it's still like that. Hopefully, it is changing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Would you like to continue with the content?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Um, yeah, and the basis of the content then picking already from what Yahoo just mentioned around closed groups and open groups, um, and the importance, you know, of having those closed groups. But this is also something that needs to be thought about already before the course. And in my experience, usually what happens is we come into the course, and since it's not factored into the content, or well, maybe content, we can be imagining just the delivery of the course, but as part of the delivery of the course, there is the atmosphere. Um, and so therefore, when you if you are to create such a group, like the closed group within the course, you therefore have to make it part of the course, but you actually have to plan it before the course, and not that people come to the course and demand it. Usually what happens is that people of color come to a course and they say, we don't have space to talk. And then they say, oh, I remember, we can create a space called BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. Rather, if you actually really want to decolonize permaculture and the course, you think of what other things would create an atmosphere. And once you offer it to the people before they come to the course, they know that I don't have to bother about not being able to speak during the sessions, because I know that anyways, I have a community that I'm going to chat with, and they're going to feed me in. I'm not bothered about all my insecurities and my questions around competencies, and whether I feel competent enough. In because usually when you've been highly discriminated upon, you don't know if you are competent enough. And so when you sit there and you listen to the content, you don't know if you're an intelligent person, or you doubt yourself plus your competencies. In such close groups allows for the opportunity then for people to digest and to regain confidence and support within the group, but also to talk about issues without asking for anyone's permission. You know, to speak to a group of people that directly understand you, how you feel, without saying, excuse me, I'm sorry, I am just going to say something. Um, I wanted to share with you at this point, you know, there's this content around 70-30, you know, for the PDC. The 70-30 rule that could apply in a lot of things. But this also applies for the core PDC content. So we are expected to deliver 70% of the core PDC content, but also we can include in the other 30% a spatial focus. And decolonizing the mind is not the focus of this teacher training, but it's been included as part of the 30%, which means that we can talk about in the PDC, intentionally include in the PDC topics that were not designed for the PDC: ecofeminism, equality, colonialism and decolonization, decolonizing the mind, different things that are, you know, anyways happening in our society, and gives us an opportunity to reflect on global issues. I would have loved if we had much more time to share with you, because lots of us have practiced or have heard about Ubuntu and the concept of Ubuntu. And this is something from, you know, African spheres. It's more a pattern that is embodied, but it also can be expressed. And one of the ways of kind of understanding, or how I try and understand to decolonize permaculture, is using the principles of Ubuntu. And I could share with you quickly, in a slide, but I can also send this, to Alfred and he could share it with you. And here you can see the principles of Ubuntu: interconnectedness, communal identity, human dignity, compassion and empathy, harmony and cooperation, shared humanity, restorative justice. I could speak about these principles of Ubuntu for a whole day. But the core and underlying factor of this concept is around embodying and building interrelationship and cooperation between people and between each other, such that in circumstances where we are in a course, we don't just create fragments, but we actually really allow people to come closer to each other. In a course, building a communal identity helps us. It doesn't necessarily deny that you are, Yao from Hong Kong and I'm Sonita from Cameroon, and actually seeing that Yao is Asian is really good because that's all of him. Denying him his Asian roots would be actually denying him who he is. And it's okay to say Yao is Asian. And saying, okay, Sonita is coming from Cameroon and she's a Black African. That's part of me. But also knowing that, she's coming from a country that is at war, that has problems with the government. All of that is part of the history. It's part of my identity. But my identity is my Blackness and all of that. No? So creating wholeness and communal identity so that we can actually, and not saying, I don't recognize color, I don't see color, when actually denying that is denying us of our identity and our wholeness. So maybe Ubuntu is something that you could explore, as an insight into decolonizing permaculture in one of your courses. Maybe you could, as a teaser, to explore more and to try it out and to check it out. But designing the content of a course of a PDC is also an invitation to bring creativity and co-creativeness into a course. And we invite you to try that out and to see what does it bring, what tensions arise, and what possibilities it brings, and to hold both the tensions and the beauty as just two equal parts. And yeah, so these are some of the things we wanted to share with you. We hope that you found it insightful. And if you would like more, of course, Yao and I are here, and we could dive even deeper. But yeah, you have last words? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just a few words on the political situation of the world is extremely complicated, and if you are having different participants of different cultures in your group, make sure you understand what political situation is it, and what is the situation in their hometown, what is their culture, what food they're eating, um, all these things. Just make sure you are well informed in in the best way as you can. Um, for me, the best way to be informed is to not have a position, political position. I mean, before having a political position, please inform yourself on different sides and then make an opinion. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Wonderful. Yeah. And most of us are political activists, to not put our political ideologies also on others. Fantastic. So that was in a nutshell, decolonizing permaculture. And we hope that we did justice for a few minutes. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you so much. And I'm really pleased to have done this with you. Yeah.
Me too, Sunita.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.